8,415 feet. That is the summit of Thailand's tallest mountain, where frost forms on tropical soil and the air bites like a January morning in Colorado. Below it, a rainforest older than the Amazon grows over limestone towers that punch straight through the jungle canopy. 37 miles offshore, 11 islands hold dive sites, where visibility drops past 100 feet into blue, so deep your brain stops processing the color. 6,000 tourists once crushed a single beach every day until the government sealed it for 4 years. These are 20 places across Thailand where the geography fights back, the history cuts deep, and the danger never made it into the brochure. We begin in the south, where the oldest living forest on Earth meets water the color of jade. Khao Sok National Park, Surat Thani Province. The trees here were standing 160 million years ago. That is not a rough estimate. Scientists have confirmed that Khao Sok protects a rainforest older and more biodiverse than the Amazon basin. The park stretches across 285 square miles of vertical limestone tangled jungle, and the man-made Cheo Lan Lake, which drops to 530 feet in places deeper than any local vessel is rated to handle. Most visitors fly into Phuket and drive 2 hours northeast. The road cuts through palm plantations until the karst walls rise without warning. They are not hills. They are sheer faces of ancient stone, some over 3,000 feet tall, wrapped in vines, thick as a man's forearm. At the dam, you board a long-tail boat. The engine cracks off the cliff walls. The water sits flat and green as old glass. Floating bungalows cling to the rock bases, rocking when the wake rolls in. Inside the forest, gibbons scream before dawn. Hornbills slam through branches overhead. Wild elephants still drink at the shoreline, pressing tracks the size of dinner plates into the mud. But this jungle punishes carelessness. Hikers who leave marked trails vanish into vegetation so dense that rescue teams have searched for days without a trace. King cobras hunt the forest floor. Reticulated pythons longer than 20 feet coil in the canopy above. The Karen communities who live on the park's edge have navigated these forests for generations. They know which trails flood overnight. They know which riverbanks collapse without sound. Tourists learn these things the hard way or not at all. If the age of this forest puts anything you have seen in perspective, a like tells the algorithm this kind of depth matters to you. Phang Nga Bai, Andaman Sea. 154 square miles of open sea. More than 40 limestone towers rising from the waterline like broken columns from a drowned cathedral. Some of these islands stand over 1,000 feet above the surface. Others are small enough to circle on foot in 10 minutes. None of them should exist, and yet they do, because 10,000 years ago, this was a mountain range. During the last ice age, sea levels sat 300 feet lower than today. What tourists now photograph from long-tail boats was once dry ridgeline. The rising ocean swallowed the valleys and left only the peaks, standing in salt water like teeth in a jaw. The bay floor drops sharply between islands, hiding sea caves and flooded tunnels that connect hollow mountains beneath the surface. A boat pulls away from Aupo Pier. The diesel engine sputters. Warm salt spray hits your face before the shore disappears behind you. Fishing villages, built on stilts, pass on the right. Fish farms float on the left. The water shifts from river brown to deep aquamarine as the bottom falls away. Then the islands appear. Some hold sea caves wide enough to paddle a kayak through into hidden interior lagoons, the Thai call Hong's Rooms. During monsoon season, surge water floods these lagoons without warning. Kayakers who misread the tides have been trapped inside for hours, waiting for the water to drop before they could paddle out. The Moken people, the sea gypsies, have read these currents for over 300 years. They navigate by water feel, not maps. Their children learn the tides before they learn to write. The next stop sits inside this same bay, and it is slowly destroying itself. James Bond Island, Khao Phing Khan, a six-foot limestone needle balances on a stem thinner at the bottom than the top. It stands 130 feet from shore in Phang Nga Bay. Since 1974, when the man with the golden gun filmed A Villain's Lair here, the world has called it James Bond Island. Locals still call it Koh Tapu Nail Island. Hollywood's name buried theirs. Boats stack 3 deep at the small pier. By 10 a.m., engines rumble. Vendors shout over the noise. Waves slap painted hulls as tourists shuffle onto a narrow beach behind the main island. A short walk through the rocks brings the needle into view. It looks impossible. The top spreads wider than the base. Balanced on a stone stem, the Andaman Sea has been grinding for centuries. Geologists estimate the rock has lost over 6 inches of base diameter in the last 50 years. Park rangers banned visitors from approaching the base after erosion accelerated sharply in the 1990s. Conservation engineers have warned the needle could eventually topple, not in our lifetime, but within centuries, if the sea keeps chewing at the same rate. Locals once tied prayer offerings to the base for luck. That practice is now illegal. The boat captains who run this route work 7 days a week during peak season. Many grew up in the floating village of Koh Pan Yi, where 1,600 Muslim Thai residents live on a platform built over the water in the 1700s. For them, the needle is not a movie set. It is a neighbor one that is slowly being eaten alive. If geology this strange makes you want to see what Thailand's coastline does to climbers, drop a comment with the most unusual rock formation you have ever stood next to. Railay Beach, Krabi Province. Over 700 bolted climbing routes carved into walls of cast limestone. The rock is sharp as broken glass. The holds are natural pockets eroded by millennia of rain. And the only way to reach any of it is by boat, because sheer cliffs cut Railay off from every road on the mainland. A longtail from Ao Nang takes 15 minutes. The fare is 200 baht, about $6. The boats are wooden, narrow, and sit so low that small waves splash over the sides. The driver works a long propeller shaft that swings the motor like a rudder. You land on white sand so fine it squeaks under your feet. Climbers come from every continent, for routes graded from beginner 5.6 to elite 8C, plus overhangs that only a handful of humans on Earth have ever sent clean. The limestone face above Phranang Cave Beach shelters a shrine filled with carved wooden offerings shaped like male anatomy, a fertility tradition older than a century. Longtail boats pull up to the sand, selling pad thai cooked over propane burners bolted to the bow. But Railay has drawn blood. In 2014, a falling rock the size of a refrigerator killed an Israeli tourist on the beach below. Loose limestone fractures along salt-weathered seams without warning. Rockfall signs now line the main path. Climbers have fallen from these walls. Some walked away, some did not. The danger is woven into the beauty. The same erosion that carved the hold's climber's grip is the force that sends stone crashing to the sand. Every route is a conversation with a cliff that has been falling apart for thousands of years. A like on this video helps push content that respects real risk instead of glossing over it. And the next entry involves a beach that nearly died. Maya Bay, Phi Lay. 6,000 visitors per day. That was the count in 2018, the year Thailand locked Maya Bay shut. The reef damage was so severe that marine scientists called it irreversible without drastic action. The government listened. The bay stayed closed for 4 years. Maya Bay stretches 820 feet long, ringed by 330-foot limestone cliffs on 3 sides. The beach is barely 30 feet wide at high tide. In 1999, Leonardo DiCaprio filmed The Beach Here, and the resulting tourism wave nearly killed the ecosystem that made the bay worth filming in the first place. Authorities reopened on the 1st of January 2022. New rules cap visitors at 4,125 per day in timed 1-hour slots. Boats cannot anchor inside the bay. Swimming is banned to protect recovering coral and the blacktip shark nursery that returned during the closure. You arrive now by walking a wooden boardwalk built across the back of the island. Boats dock on the opposite shore. The walk takes 10 minutes through coastal scrub. Then the bay opens turquoise water, white sand, cliffs in every direction, and silence that did not exist here 5 years ago. Park rangers count tourists at the entrance with handheld clickers. When the hour ends, a whistle blows. Everyone walks back, no exceptions. The system is rigid and it works. Coral is regrowing. Juvenile sharks patrol water that was once churned brown by propeller wash. Maya Bay is proof that a country can choose ecology over revenue and win. The reef is coming back. The question is whether the rest of the world is watching closely enough to learn. If conservation stories like this deserve more airtime, subscribing tells the algorithm to surface them, not bury them under resort ads. The Phi Islands. On the 26th of December 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami hit Phi Don without warning. Waves over 20 feet high swept across the narrow sandbar connecting the island's 2 halves. More than 4,000 people died, tourists and the Thai workers who served them erased in minutes from an island built for paradise. 6 islands make up the Phi archipelago. 2 are inhabited. The other 4 are protected national park. The group sits 28 miles southeast of Phuket. Speedboats reach them in 50 minutes. As you approach, the ocean shifts, deep blue to turquoise to pale green, where the reef rises beneath the hull. Tonsai village was rebuilt within a few years. The new construction is shorter, heavier, and braced for surge. Evacuation routes were carved into the hills above the bay. Yellow-painted signs point uphill at every intersection. They are not decoration. They are instructions, written in the language of survival by a community that buried thousands. The reefs here are recovering from coral bleaching events in 2010 and 2016. Diving visibility still exceeds 80 feet on good days. Blacktip reef sharks circle the shallows, curious but not aggressive. They investigate swimmers the way a dog checks a stranger at the door. Every December, locals hold quiet ceremonies on the beach where the wave hit hardest. The names of the dead are read. Flowers are set on the water. The tourists who visit that week rarely know what they are witnessing. The ones who ask are told the full story, and most of them go quiet for a long time afterward. Phi rebuilt, but it remembers. And the yellow signs on every corner make sure no one who lives here ever forgets which direction to run. There are islands further offshore where the rules get even stricter and the water gets deeper than most divers will ever see. The Similan Islands. Visibility past 100 feet. Water temperature locked between 82 and 86 degrees year-round. Whale sharks passing through between February and April. The Similan Archipelago, 11 islands, 37 miles off Thailand's western coast, ranks consistently in the world's top 10 dive sites. And the Thai government treats it like the fragile monument it is. The park closes entirely from mid-May to mid-October during monsoon season. During open months, boats depart from Khao Lak Pier and reach the islands in 90 minutes. Day visitors are capped at 3,850, a limit imposed in 2018 after years of reef stress. Camping was banned the same year after chronic waste mismanagement. All overnight stays now happen on liveaboard dive boats anchored offshore. Donald Duck Bay on Island 8 is the postcard shot. A granite boulder, shaped vaguely like a duck's head, sits on a cliff above the beach. The hike to the top takes 20 minutes through scrub forest. The view covers most of the archipelago and an unbroken line where sky meets Andaman Sea. Below the surface is where the Similans earn their reputation. Manta rays cruise the deep sites. Leopard sharks rest on sand ledges. Over 200 species of hard coral build walls of color below 30 feet. But the currents at sites like Elephant Head Rock hit 2 knots strong enough to shove an experienced diver off the wall and into open blue before they can grab anything solid. Dive masters track conditions hourly. The margin between a perfect dive and a dangerous one here is measured in minutes. One tidal shift changes everything. If you have done a Similan liveaboard, the audience here plans these trips seriously. Your honest gear and operator notes in the comments carry real weight. Koh Tao Gulf of Thailand. Over 70,000 divers earn their PADI open water certification on this island every year. That makes Koh Tao the largest dive certification hub in Asia and the second largest on the planet. The island itself measures just 8 square miles. 3 fishing villages have grown into a sprawl of dive shops, hostels, and beachside bars connected by a single cracked road. Sairi Beach on the west coast holds the nightlife. Hin Wong Bay on the east stays quiet, with a few resorts cut into rock above black volcanic boulders. The water between them hides 4 major shipwrecks. The HTMS Satakut, a former US Navy landing craft, was sunk as an artificial reef in 2011 and sits at 100 feet on a clean sand bottom. 2 Royal Thai Navy attack craft were sunk in 2022 and 2023 to expand the wreck diving portfolio. Beneath the brochure surface, the currents above the wrecks shift without warning during tide changes. Inexperienced divers have surfaced miles off target after being pulled by drift they never felt building. Local dive masters monitor conditions hourly during peak season. They know which windows are safe. They know which ones are not worth the risk. The island also carries a history most dive shops do not advertise. In 2014, 2 British tourists were murdered on the beach. The case drew international scrutiny to Koh Tao's policing and produced years of debate over the reliability of the convictions. The island's nickname in some corners of the internet, Death Island, has never fully faded. Koh Tao sells paradise, but the currents and the history both remind you that paradise has fine print. What comes next is an island so remote that electricity only arrived in the last generation, and getting there requires crossing open ocean with no guarantee of calm water. Koh Lipe, Satun Province. No airport, no ferry terminal, no paved dock. Koh Lipe sits inside Tarutao National Marine Park, 40 miles from the mainland in the southern Andaman Sea, less than 20 miles from the Malaysian border. Getting here means boarding a speedboat from Pakbara Pier and crossing open water for 90 minutes, water that turns violent without warning between May and October. The island is barely 2 square miles. 3 beaches form its coastline: Sunrise, Sunset, and Pattaya. Walking Street runs between them, a narrow concrete path lined with restaurants, dive shops, and guest houses that did not exist 15 years ago. Before 2010, Koh Lipe had no reliable electricity. Generators ran at night. Ice was a luxury shipped in by boat. The Chow Lei sea nomads indigenous to these waters have lived around Koh Lipe for centuries. Their village sits on the island's southern edge, increasingly squeezed between resort construction and rising land prices. Development arrived faster than regulation. Structures were built without permits on protected national park land. Legal disputes between the Thai government, developers, and Chow Lei communities have simmered for over a decade. The reef surrounding Koh Lipe is part of one of the most biodiverse marine ecosystems in Southeast Asia. Over 25% of the world's tropical fish species have been documented within Tarutao's boundaries. But the reef took severe hits from coral bleaching in 2010 and 2016, and the runoff from rapid, unregulated construction has clouded water that was once crystal. The danger here is not dramatic, it is slow. An island being loved to death by the same people who came because it was untouched. The Chow Lei watch it happen from a village that shrinks a little more each year. If stories of communities caught between tourism and survival matter to you, alike signals that this kind of reporting has an audience. Now we leave the islands and move north into Bangkok, where temples rise as sharply as the cliffs we just left behind. Wat Arun, Bangkok. The central tower stands 270 feet tall. That is higher than a 2.5-story building, covered from base to tip in millions of fragments of Chinese porcelain that were originally shipped as ballast in trading vessels from mainland China. When sunlight hits the seashell-shaped niches, the entire surface shimmers as if the building is wet. Pilots flying into Chiang Mai do not use it as a landmark, but pilots landing at Bangkok's airports on clear days can spot the gold and white reflection from miles out. Construction began in the 1700s under King Taksin. Kings Rama II and Rama III expanded the complex over the following century. You can still climb partway up the central prang, but the stairs are nearly vertical, roughly 60 degrees, worn smooth by 200 years of foot traffic. No handrails protect the steepest section. Visitors with balance or knee problems are turned away at the second tier. In 2017, 2 tourists were hospitalized after slipping during heavy rain on the upper steps. From the upper level, the Chao Phraya River moves below like a brown conveyor belt. Long-tail boats hammer past, trailing diesel exhaust. Across the water, the gold roofs of the Grand Palace catch the afternoon light. The river runs 4 to 6 knots during outgoing tides, strong enough to drag a swimmer a mile downstream before anyone on the bank could react. Monks still pray here every morning before the gates open to tourists. The chanting carries across the courtyard and into the trees. When it stops, the only sound is the river. If a 270-foot porcelain tower makes you want to see what sits beneath it, keep watching. The river it overlooks is slowly swallowing the city around it. The Chao Phraya River, Bangkok. Bangkok sits an average of 5 feet above sea level. The city is sinking. Geological surveys show the ground drops between half an inch and an inch per year due to decades of groundwater extraction and the soft clay foundation underneath 11 million people. Climate scientists project significant portions of the capital could be underwater by 2050 without massive engineering intervention. The Chao Phraya runs 231 miles from central Thailand to the Gulf. Inside Bangkok, it splits the city in half and carries an estimated 700,000 commuters daily on water taxis, ferries, and longtails. Stand on a riverside pier at sunset, and the air is diesel, wet concrete, and grilled fish from floating food stalls. The water is opaque brown, centuries of silt and monsoon runoff, moving at a pace that looks lazy but is not. In 2011, monsoon floods overwhelmed dikes across the country. Water poured into 65 of Thailand's 76 provinces. Over 800 people died. Bangkok's central districts held, but only barely, and only after weeks of emergency construction threw up barriers that were never designed to be permanent. Some of those barriers are still standing. Plastic bottles drift past in patterns set by tide and current. Above the water, skyscrapers reflect sunset onto temple roofs that predate them by 2 centuries. The contrast is so sharp, it feels staged. It is not. It is just what happens when a medieval river city grows a modern skyline without moving its foundation. The Chao Phraya is both highway and threat, a geography the city cannot survive with and cannot survive without. Every monsoon season, 11 million people hold their breath. Subscribe if you want the full documentary on the world's sinking cities. It is already in research, and Bangkok is just the opening chapter. Damnoen Saduak, floating market, Ratchaburi province. The canal is barely 20 feet wide. Wooden boats, loaded with coconuts, mangoes, grilled skewers, and bags of sticky rice, pack the waterway so tightly that vendors push off each other's hulls to move. Above them, tourists line the concrete banks with cameras. Below them, the water is black. Damnoen Saduak sits 60 miles southwest of Bangkok in Ratchaburi province. The canal system dates to 1866, when King Rama IV ordered it dug to connect the Mekong and the Chin rivers. For over a century, these canals were the highway system of central Thailand, moving rice, produce, and people before roads existed. Today, the market opens before sunrise. By 7 a.m., the canal is gridlocked with boats. Vendors, mostly women over 50, paddle or pole their vessels through gaps measured in inches. Charcoal grills sit on metal plates in the center of wooden boats. Open flame on wood, surrounded by water that cannot be reached fast enough if a boat catches fire. It has happened. Boat fires are not common, but they are not rare either. There is no fire department on the canal. The market draws over 2,000 visitors per day during peak season. Most are tourists who arrive by minibus from Bangkok. The experience is real. These women are selling what they grew, but the economy has shifted. Without tourism, many vendors say the market would close within a year. The canals themselves are sinking into the soft alluvial soil. Maintenance is constant and underfunded. Sections of the bank collapse during heavy rain, dropping chunks of concrete into the waterway. The boats navigate around them. Nobody stops selling. If a floating market built on a 160-year-old canal sounds like it belongs in a different century, that is because it does. And the next stop takes us to a place that lost its century entirely. Ayutthaya Historical Park. In 1767, a Burmese army burned Ayutthaya to the ground after a 14-month siege. The city had stood as the capital of Siam for 417 years. At its peak in the 1600s, over 1 million people lived inside its walls, making it one of the largest cities on Earth. When the fires stopped, only ruins remained. The site sits 50 miles north of Bangkok, wrapped by 3 rivers, the Chao Phraya, Lopburi, and Parsak, that form a natural moat. Ayutthaya was designed that way deliberately. The water made the city nearly impossible to take by force. The Burmese succeeded only after starving it for over a year. Today, over 400 acres of brick prangs, headless Buddhas, and crumbling stupas bake in the central Thai sun. UNESCO listed the park as a World Heritage Site in 1991. Restoration is constant and painfully slow. Conservators rebuild walls brick by brick that floods, monsoons, and centuries of looting have pulled apart piece by piece. The most photographed feature is a stone Buddha head swallowed by the roots of a fig tree at Wat Mahathat. The head likely fell during the 1767 sacking. Over generations, the tree grew around it until stone and wood became inseparable. No one knows the exact decade the roots closed. Walking the park at dawn, you hear cicadas and distant temple bells. The brick holds warmth from the day before. Stray dogs sleep in doorways that once framed gold. The silence is not peaceful. It is the sound of a million people who are no longer there. Drop a comment if you have walked through ruins that made you stop talking. The audience here knows that feeling. The next province holds one of the most beautiful waterfalls in Southeast Asia and one of the darkest construction projects in modern history. Separated by 25 miles of jungle, Erawan Falls and the death railway Kanchanaburi. One death for every 13 feet of completed track. That is the toll of the Burma Railway. 258 miles of jungle, river, and mountain built between 1942 and 1943 by the Japanese Imperial Army, using 60,000 Allied prisoners of war and over 200,000 Asian laborers. An estimated 12,000 POWs and 90,000 Asian workers died in less than 2 years. Cholera, dysentery, starvation, and beatings killed them faster than the track could advance. 25 miles north, Erawan Falls drops through 7 tiers of emerald pools across 5,000 feet of jungle. Limestone minerals dye the water turquoise. Doctor fish nibble at the ankles of swimmers who hold still in the lower pools. Wild macaques patrol the banks and steal anything left unguarded. The contrast between the falls and the railway is almost unbearable. Paradise and atrocity, sharing the same province, the same soil, the same river system. The bridge over the River Kwai still stands. Trains cross it 3 times daily. The wooden trestle at Tham Krasai clings to a limestone cliff 30 feet above the river. The same trestle, prisoners built by hand, while guards stood behind them with rifles. Tourists ride those rails now, photographing the view from seats bolted above mass graves most of them will never know about. A war cemetery in Kanchanaburi town holds 6,982 marked graves. Most headstones are British, Australian, and Dutch. The youngest dead were teenagers who enlisted about the same age as many viewers watching right now. The falls are beautiful. The railway is a scar. Both are real and both exist in the same drive, under the same sky. Thailand does not hide its wounds. It just plants waterfalls next to them. If anyone watching has family connected to the Pacific Theatre, the comments here are where those stories belong. This audience listens. Sukhothai Historical Park. Before Ayutthaya, there was Sukhothai. Founded in 1238, it was the first independent capital of the Thai people. The kingdom lasted barely 200 years, but in that time, the Thai script was invented. Theravada Buddhism became the national religion, and the cultural DNA of modern Thailand was written into stone. The park covers 27 square miles in Thailand's lower north. UNESCO inscribed it in 1991, alongside the ruins at Si Sachanalai and Kamphaeng Phet. Over 190 ruins stand in the central zone alone. Most are temples. Some are royal palaces, reduced to foundation lines in the dirt, their roofs and walls dissolved by 7 centuries of monsoon. Wat Mahathat sits at the city's center. A reclining Buddha, originally over 30 feet long, lies weathered and exposed inside what was once a roofed sanctuary. The roof is gone. The Buddha remains staring at open sky through stone eyes that have not blinked since the 1200s. Renting a bicycle costs 30 baht, about $1. The ground is flat. The air smells of frangipani and dry grass. Lotus ponds fill the spaces between temple complexes. At sunset, sandstone turns burnt orange, and the pond surfaces mirror everything above them perfectly. Sukhothai was not destroyed. It was abandoned. The walls were not torn down. The people simply walked south. As political power shifted to Ayutthaya, what remains is a city being slowly reclaimed by lotus, banyan roots, and the kind of silence that only grows in places humans chose to leave behind. The difference between a city that was burned and a city that was abandoned is the difference between violence and forgetting. Both erase. Only one leaves the walls standing. Now we climb into cold mountains most visitors do not believe Thailand has. Doi Inthanon, Chiang Mai Province. Frost on tropical soil. That is what Thai social media circulated in 2014 and again in 2023. Photographs of ice crystals forming at 8,415 feet on the summit of Doi Inthanon, the highest peak in Thailand. Summit temperatures drop near freezing during cold season nights between December and February. In a country where the lowlands sit in permanent tropical heat, this mountain exists in a different climate entirely. The peak sits inside Doi Inthanon National Park, 60 miles southwest of Chiang Mai City. A paved road climbs the full distance to the summit. The grade hits 12% in places. Signs warn drivers to descend in low gear. Brake failure on this road has killed at least 4 people since 2010, mostly on rented motorbikes piloted by tourists who underestimated the mountain. At the base, Dipterocarp jungle rises thick and green. At 6,000 feet, the forest shifts to mossy cloud cover branches dripping with lichens, ferns growing on ferns, the air cool and heavy with moisture. Near the summit, the trees shrink to stunted oak and rhododendron. Fog rolls in without warning and wraps the peak in cold gray for hours. You feel the altitude in your lungs before you see the view disappear. The royal twin pagodas Phra Mahathat, Nafamethanidon, and Nafafol Bumasiri sit just below the summit. Built in 1987 and 1992 to honor the king and queen. The gardens surrounding them grow plant species found nowhere else in the country. Karen and Hmong communities farm the lower slopes, growing coffee and strawberries on terraces their grandparents cleared with hand tools. The mountain belongs to the government. The soil belongs to them. Drop a comment with the highest elevation you have ever driven. This community has serious altitude veterans. What for that doi Sutep Chiang Mai, 306 steps, 2 carved Naga serpents, each over 50 feet long, flanking the staircase from the parking lot to the temple terrace, 3,500 feet above Chiang Mai. Most visitors climb. Some pay 50 baht to ride a small funicular. Either way, the city falls away below, and the air cools with every step. According to temple history, the site was founded in 1383 after a sacred Buddha relic was placed on the back of a white elephant. The elephant climbed the mountain alone, trumpeted 3 times at the summit, and died. A temple was built on the spot where it fell. The central Shedi, a bell-shaped reliquary tower, is plated in copper and gold leaf. It stands 78 feet tall and reflects sunlight so intensely that pilots landing at Chiang Mai International Airport use it as a visual reference on clear days. The gold is visible from the runway. The view from the terrace covers all of Chiang Mai and the Ping River Valley. On clear mornings, the detail is sharp enough to pick out individual buildings downtown. Between February and April, that view disappears. Agricultural burning across northern Thailand fills the air with smoke so thick it registers as hazardous on air quality monitors. The haze clogs the throat and stings the eyes. Tourists who visit during burning season often cannot see the city at all. Monks chant inside the main Vaihan at 5 a.m. and again at 6 p.m. The sound carries past the parking lot and into the forest. Visitors are welcome to sit and listen as long as they stay quiet and their feet never point toward the Buddha image. That is not a suggestion. It is a rule older than the country's current borders. If temples like this make a video worth watching, a like helps surface it for viewers who care about places with centuries behind them. Pa Pong Piang Rice Terraces, Mei Chaim, hand-cut terraces stepping down a mountainside in over 20 stages. Karen Hill tribe families have farmed these paddies for more than a century. The water that floods each level comes from natural springs higher up the ridge, channeled through bamboo pipes and earthen ditches built without surveying equipment by people who understood gravity better than any engineer with a laser level. The road to Pa Pong Piang is 45 miles southwest of Chiang Mai. It is unpaved, narrow, and steep enough that local drivers describe it as dangerous even in dry weather. Two-wheel drive vehicles slide off the edge during rainy season between June and October. The drop in places exceeds 200 feet of unbroken slope. No guardrails, no shoulders, no cell service for the last 12 miles. October is the window. The rice ripens to gold and the terraces glow at sunrise like stacked mirrors full of fire. Photographers hike the ridge above the village in total darkness, headlamps bobbing up the trail, to claim positions before first light. By 7 a.m., the hillside is covered in tripods and whispered conversation. The Karen families who farm here wear traditional dress on workdays, not for tourists, for themselves. Children walk to school on trails that switch back between paddies, their great-grandparents carved by hand. A homestay in the village charges 600 baht a night, about $18, and includes sticky rice, grilled river fish, and chili paste, hot enough to numb your lips for an hour. This is one of the last places in Thailand where the rhythm of life predates electricity. The terraces do not need power. They run on water, gravity, and knowledge passed down through hands, not textbooks. If you have stayed in a hill tribe homestay, the audience benefits from your first-hand account. Drop it below. The White Temple Wat Rong Kun. Spider-Man is painted on the wall of a Buddhist temple. So is Neo from The Matrix. So are the Twin Towers burning on September 11. Inside the main hall of Wat Rong Kun, the murals shatter every rule traditional Thai temple art has followed for centuries. And that is exactly the point. Construction began in 1997, funded entirely by Thai artist Chalermchai Thoppipat. The project is his life's work. He estimates it will not be finished until approximately 2070. The exterior is white plaster layered with chips of mirrored glass that catch sunlight from every angle. Approaching on foot, the building appears to move light, bouncing off thousands of tiny reflective surfaces at once. To reach the main hall, visitors cross a bridge over a sculpted pit filled with hundreds of outstretched hands reaching upward from below. The hands represent desire, the Buddhist teaching that craving pulls humans into suffering. Skulls and demon faces are molded into the bridge railings. The message is not subtle. It is not meant to be. Inside, the pop culture murals surround traditional Buddha images. Thoppifat's statement, "Modern obsessions are the new demons." Photography inside is banned. You see it once, with your own eyes, or you see it never. In 2014, a 6.3 magnitude earthquake struck Chiang Rai and cracked the temple's structure. Thoppipat initially announced he would tear the entire complex down rather than compromise the vision. Then he reversed himself. The temple was rebuilt and reopened within a year. It sits 8 miles south of Chiang Rai city. It is the only temple in Thailand where a predator sculpture crawls out of the ground next to a meditating monk. The sacred and the profane sharing the same garden and neither one blinking. Subscribe so the next deep dive on the world's most unconventional religious architecture lands in your feed the day it drops. Puchi Pha, Chiang Rai Province. The cliff drops 5,575 feet straight into Laos. No railing, no barrier, no fence. Phu Chi Pha, the mountain pointing at the sky, is the eastern edge of Thailand, a limestone ridge that ends in a vertical wall above the Mekong River basin. At least 3 people have died here in the last 15 years. 2 fell. 1 collapsed from a cardiac event during the cold pre-dawn hike. Park officials have proposed barriers multiple times. Local communities have blocked every attempt. They believe the unmediated edge is what makes this place what it is. Reaching the viewpoint requires a 90-minute drive from Chiang Rai city through hairpin turns and steep grades. The final 4 miles are unpaved and rough. From the parking area, a 30-minute dirt trail leads to the cliff. In the pre-dawn hours, the only light comes from headlamps bobbing up the path in single file. People come for sunrise. Below the cliff, mist fills the valley between Thailand and Laos, like a white ocean poured between mountain walls. The sun breaks behind the ridge and lights the mist from above gold, then orange, then blinding white. The Mekong appears only after the fog burns off, a brown ribbon cutting through green jungle thousands of feet below. Cold season mornings between November and February drop into the 40s. Tourists rent jackets from vendors who set up at the trailhead before dawn, selling warmth by the hour to people in sandals and shorts. The temperature shocks them. Thailand is not supposed to feel like this. This is where Thailand ends. Across the valley, Laos begins a different country, a different story, a different set of dangers entirely. The cliff does not care about borders. It only cares about gravity. Some of the people watching this have dived the Similans. Some have stood on the Death Railway Bridge. Some grew up in Thai families and carry stories no Western guidebook will ever print. This channel exists because those stories deserve a place where they are told with precision, with honesty, and with the kind of respect that factory travel content will never offer. Explore Danger does not skim surfaces. It goes to the places where the geology bites back, where the history still bleeds, and where the people who live there have earned the right to be heard. If you have been to any of these places, or if watching made you feel like you were, the comments section is yours. Drop your story. Name the place that stayed with you. This community was built by the people who show up and share what they actually know.